Greetings, everyone. Good to have you with us today. We're starting a brand new week here in the middle part of December. This is Insight to the End Times. I'm Dr. Brian Scott. Thanks for joining us today. This week, we're going to be sharing some events that are going on in the world right now, or have been going on in the world, that all point to the perilous times that the Apostle Paul referred to in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. When he warned Timothy and the believers in Ephesus at the Ephesian church, he said, know this, in the last days, perilous times will come, or extremely dangerous times will come. And then they go on to list about 24 or 25 elements of the danger that he was referring to. Well, I want to share some things that have been going on. I've been reading newspapers I started reading newspapers as a young kid, and that was a long time ago. And I've always continued to read newspapers, and I still do to this day. One of the papers I read is a national paper here in Canada. Excellent writing, excellent editorials. I appreciate them. I have been cutting a lot of them out for several years now. In fact, I've got 3 file folders, and each file folder is about that thick with newspaper clippings. So I will refer to a couple of those this week in our webcasts or our podcasts to just show you how severe things have become. But let's get into some things today. It seems to me, and maybe to you as well, that our governments have come to the conclusion that they're the only ones who know what's best for us. And they've also come to the conclusion that the more government we have, the better it is. Well, you may or may not agree with that. I don't personally agree with that at all. I'm in favor of having my personal rights maintained, where I get choices and I get to make my own choices, et cetera, et cetera. So let me share a couple things that have been occurring. And I want you to realize before we get into these things, there's a good side to these things. There's also a bad side. I'm going to be focusing on the potential for the badness that comes out of these events. Not too long ago, one of our provinces here in Canada, we have 10 provinces, 3 territories for 13 jurisdictions. One of our provinces passed a piece of legislation which gave the government, or it put into effect, the power to access patients' individual medical records. And this bill that they passed allows them to create and maintain an electronic database of the personal medical information of the residents of that particular province.
Hey, this is Matt from Insights to the End Times. I wanted to interrupt just for a quick moment and ask you to do us a huge favor. If you could go ahead and hit the like, share, or subscribe button, it would allow us to make sure that you stay up to date with all the latest videos from Dr. Scott. Now back to the episode.
Now, the good side of that is digital records means that no matter where they go for medical care, whether it's to their own personal doctor or whether it's to a doctor in another region if they're out of town visiting or whatever, or to an emergency hospital or to a clinic, that these other individuals will have access to the information and know the things that have been done in the past and the things that they may be allergic to and so on and so forth, so they don't do something that would make the situation worse. That's the good side of having the material available on a digital basis across the province. I'm sure there's other positive impacts or effects as well. But the part I'm concerned about, and the part that was raised in the editorial, is that it may allow other departments, other bureaucracies, other politicians, for instance, or departments within the government to access that information. And they may begin to look at the information from the point of view of this individual, there's merit in treating them. This individual, there's no merit in treating them. This situation is beyond fixing. Age is an issue, whatever the case may be. It gives them too much information And too much information allows them to make decisions which may not be in our best interests. That's the concern. So if we have different medical categories being established, then citizens may or may not have access to the kind of care that they need and would appreciate. Now, it really boils down to our personal freedoms are under attack. And the things that we've paid for all through our lives, through our taxes and through our contributions to various pension plans and things of this nature, may or may not be as free as we anticipated they would be. So why would it be the government's business to know what my medical conditions are? It's never been the case before. Why is it the case now? Well, I'll tell you why it's the case now. It's because we have more people than we have medical facilities. We have more people than we have medical doctors, especially at the general practitioner level or the GP level. We have way too many people accessing emergency care because they don't have a doctor. We have people living much longer than they used to live. And bottom line is we don't have the money to support the healthcare system that we used to enjoy so freely and so expertly provided. So the bottom line is we got to crunch. And when you got to crunch, steps are taken to alleviate the crunch. I hope you're on the same page with me as it pertains to this. So our medical information, should it not be personal, private? Amen. If digital medical information is going to become the norm, what about digital financial information? Financial information, banking purposes of a digital nature. That's a whole different topic. It's something that has been broached and implemented in the nation of Australia, much to the chagrin of many of the citizens who don't want to submit their personal financial information to this authority. So we are at a dilemma time. And so this bill that's been passed in one of our provinces and has gone into effect as well as I know, as far as I know, it's gone into effect. I'm sure it's having good positive impact, but the potential is there for things coming along in the future. We may want to reconsider whether or not this is something we favor. Now, why do I raise that? Well, it removes the privacy of our life. It removes the personal information about our life. It makes it available to those who may not have our best interests at heart. A loss of personal rights, freedoms, etc., etc. Now, our governments used to respect us in this respect, personal dignity, personal integrity, and so on and so forth. They also used to help us and urge us to fulfill our personal aspirations and our goals and so on and so forth. But things have really shifted and changed a great deal. And we're seeing a tremendous loss of potential norms in our government. We go back to this verse. It says, perilous times are coming. Well, they're here. They're not coming. They're here. They're already here. I was in a conference just recently, and I made a list of the most recent things that have been proposed or initiated in our country that are very restrictive and very much an infringement of our personal rights and freedoms. And I was appalled at what I was recording. I'll give you a couple instances real quickly. Here in Canada, there's been a major issue for several decades, I guess you could say. And this deals with the historical treatment of Native children in the western provinces of Canada, whom they say many of them were removed from their families and put into a residential school. And there's been all kinds of horror stories about this. And there's a lot of the adults today, we now call indigenous native people, who give account of or give testimony of the mistreatment that they had within these residential schools. At the same time, there's a lot of good that came out of that situation in terms of educating the native children, et cetera, et cetera. But it wasn't all that long ago here in Canada that a native chief came out and said that there's a school out in British Columbia, and that school is closed, been closed for some time, but there's a graveyard, they claim, that has something like 250 grave sites where children were buried that were malnourished, died of sickness, disease, etc., or abuse within the residential school system. So the statements have been made by a native chief, as I recall, and the government picked up on it. And our former leadership here all of a sudden had this notion that they wanted to go after our history and eliminate it, and talk in terms of how horrible our country was, to the point where some of our original leadership, our prime ministers, the early prime ministers who did great things for the building of the railroad from coast to coast, from all the way from the British Columbia Pacific shoreline all the way over to the Atlantic Ocean. This was a massive, massive undertaking. And under their leadership, this was accomplished, as well as many other tremendous things. But all of a sudden, now they're tainted with this, hey, you were the one who initiated the residential school system, and you're therefore responsible for having killed all these children. So it wasn't all that long ago, about a year and a half ago, that our prime minister decided, because of his leaning in this desire to eliminate our past and cry about our past over and over again, he decided to lower the flag to half-mast, which is done to honor someone who has passed, and usually it's a 2 or 3 day thing. It lasted for over 6 months in our country. They have never, ever, to my knowledge, and I stay on top of this, they've never, ever found an actual grave with a cadaver in it, a body in it. They've stated that there are, but they've never found one. So here we are with this issue. It's a very volatile issue, a very strong political issue. And we have people who are still pounding the drum on it. We have people who say it possibly never happened. So a legislative member, an elected member of our federal parliament, came out with a proposal just recently that it should become a criminal offense for anyone denying that this occurred. We have no proof that it did occur. But if you deny that it occurred, they want this to be made a criminal offense, punishable with a hefty financial fine or some time in prison. What's that all about? Can I not have my own opinion as to what may or may not have happened? Can I not do my own research, do my own reading, do all my historical references to see whether or not I am in favor or against it? And can I have the right to have an opinion, either pro or con? This is the way life has always been. But now, no, we can't have an opinion. No, we can't have freedom of speech on this issue. And they're proposing, now whether it ever goes through, that's a good question. But the fact that they would even have the gall to propose it indicates the perilous times we're living in, that they feel they have the right to tell me what I can believe, what I can say, what I can express. I don't know, maybe that doesn't rub you the wrong way, but I see it as a slippery slope. Here's a second one. Our nation here has been on a green initiative for several decades. And it's we have had a government that was very, very heavy green initiative, climate control, imposing taxes on us for the creation of carbon monoxide, et cetera, et cetera. They call it the carbon taxes. And they're very severe, actually. And that means when we go to the gas pump to gas our cars, we're paying a hefty amount of tax just for this carbon issue. So another elected member of our federal government, a different province, he comes out and proposes that there be a criminal offense with a fine and or imprisonment should we show our favoritism for fossil fuel development. If we're in favor of continuing our gas and oil exploration, et cetera, and we show that we are pro fossil fuels, that ought to be an offense. Folks, give me a break. Oh my gracious. The intrusion on our privacy, the intrusion on our public, our personal opinion. This is perilous times. You have to watch what you say. You have to watch who you say it to. You have to watch what the context is. Like, wow, we're in trouble. Here's my final one. So, unbelievable. The statistics are in favor of us continuing with fossil fuels as well as developing alternate sources of power through solar and wind and so on. No problem with that. But why would you nail me for wanting to gas my car? You might think, you're going overboard. You don't know the slippery slope that this causes. Here's the last one. Canada has been involved in medical assistance in dying. It's the MAID system, M-A-I-D, for about 10 years now. And this system was brought into effect giving doctors permission to euthanize people, put it in simple terms, to euthanize people who are in severe pain, severe distress. They have a situation that's not going to resolve. They may be on life support, et cetera, but it's their medical condition is so severe that the only way to relieve it is through euthanasia. And so they introduced it. There are tests that are to be looked after and so on. But here's the issue that's occurring. And most people aren't aware of this, but if you're a senior, as a for instance, and you have to be admitted to the hospital, as part of the admission procedure, you are likely going to be asked to sign a MAID form, or at least it's discussed with you. Now, it may not occur in every situation, but we have had instances where it's occurred on a regular basis in our local hospitals with seniors that we're praying for. Amen? So we're aware of what's going on there. Canada's program was initiated after the Netherlands had initiated programs. We have now surpassed them. We are now the number one country in the world for conducting MAID deaths. And here's a couple of statistics for you. In 2023, MAID deaths accounted for 13,241 deaths in Canada, which was about 4.1% of the population that died. So 4% of the population chose to die by way of MAID. In 2024, last year, the number went to 16,499, which increased the percentage somewhat. And since the introduction in 2016 here in Canada, we've seen just over 61,000 people go and have MAID, where they have euthanasia. Now it started out you had to be severely in pain or discomfort or no possible solution to your problem. And now they're expanding it to include people who have mental issues or people who just don't feel comfortable living at a subsistence level. They're also looking at lowering the age down into the teen years. So this thing started out to alleviate the gruesome pain that people were in. Irreparable, we couldn't turn it around. And now it's, hey, I'm tired of living this way. I don't want to live this way. I'm tired of this. I want to choose mate. These are all perilous things that have been creeping into our society. And when we say that perilous times have come, they're here. And they are all around us, and yet we may not even know they exist. So just wanted to give you some insight. You may or may not agree with anything or everything I've said today, but that's your right. The freedom to disagree or the freedom to agree, many times it's being removed from us. I'll see you on Wednesday. Call you blessed. We're getting closer to Christmas, so be blessed. Amen.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Insights to the End Times. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to get notified every time we release a new video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right over here. Now, if you'd like to catch the previous episode, you can do that right here, or the entire playlist is right above, right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Insights to the End Times.